Hello everyone, I've just come off the phone to somebody who was asking for some advice on a few things. Just getting into the property game, and I thought I'd share with you some of the thoughts that I shared with him. In his mind, as I know a lot of people do think that you need a load of capital and whatever else to get started. The reality is it is simply not true. I mean, I know that a lot of these courses and whatever, they do sell that dream, you know, you don't need any money and all this. Money is needed, it just doesn't need to be your money. So if they say, you know, you don't need any money, you do, it's just not yours. However, you know, if you do have capital, sometimes it is easier to get into the industry, obviously, because it puts you at an advantage. You've got energy, aka capital, there to work with. However, it also makes you lazy. So if I had £1 million sitting in a bank account, it'd be fairly lazy of me to use that £1 million to buy deals with, right? Now, I'm not saying I wouldn't use it, but I can say with certainty now that not all of that will go into one deal. If I did have £1 million sitting there in a bank account, which I don't. And I'd probably suggest nowadays, with the rate of inflation, there aren't many people, smart people, who have £1 million sitting in bank accounts either. Yeah, it makes you lazy. And the reason it makes you lazy is that it doesn't need your mind to be creative. It doesn't need you to think outside the box. How can you get that money together? What lenders do you need to work with? What network do you need to build to get that capital together? Whereas if you already have it, you don't need to do that, right? So when I spoke to the guy earlier, you know, I said to him, even if you've got access to capital, which I didn't ask, if you've got access to it, do deals as if you haven't got any. Your frame of reference is, I've got no money here. How can I put this deal together so that nothing has to come out my pocket? Now, that doesn't necessarily mean when push comes to shove, when the deal is there to be done, you don't have to put a little bit in. I'm not saying that, obviously, but as a first point of contact in the mind, as well as with the seller, and when you're talking to joint venture partners, act as if you don't have access to that money. And that money has to be created, or you have to provide a level of value to somebody in order for that capital to be deployed to you. Because when I first started out, I didn't have access to money. I was selling deals, right? And that made me think outside the box. Well, there wasn't even a box there. It was just like, how can I get this together? The old saying, beg, borrow, and steal, whatever they say. I mean, that wasn't the case at all. But metaphorically speaking, it's like, I'll do anything to get this together. Who do I need to speak to? How many network meetings do I need to attend? How many people, how many investors do I need to talk to per week in order to raise 100 grand, for example? And then I'd work those figures. Over 6 months, I'd know that I'd need to speak to 2 people a week, every week, in order to raise 100 grand, for example. And most people aren't prepared to do the work, so they'll say, oh, you know, I've spoke to X amount of people and I've tried to do this deal and that deal and it's just not working, blah, blah, blah. That's simply because they haven't done it enough. There's no secret sauce. No one can teach it to you. They can't give you that fire in your belly. It's just simply, if you don't want to do it, you won't do it. And this is where big thinking comes in. And again, it's a little bit cliche, think big, but there's a lot of science to and psychology to that thinking. If you're just starting out, or even if you've been in the game a while, doesn't matter. If you think in non-linear terms, now when I say that, I mean massive. I don't mean, you know, double what you're doing now. I mean massive. If you think in those terms, everything that's kept you where you are, anything that is just linear and progressive, slightly progressive, has to be removed. The people you surround yourself with, 10 times, 100 times bigger than you are today, are not the same people that have got you where you are today. So when you start acting and when you start living 10x, 100x, your network changes, the deals you look at change, the expectations and standards that you have of yourself change, your identity changes, and that's where you need to be at. If you're, I don't know, making 100 grand a year, for example, and you want to make 200 grand, you don't have to change that much. You just have to tweak a few things and whatever else. And you might do it over 3 or 4 years. But if you're going, nah, forget that, I want 10 million this year, everything that you're doing needs to evolve and adapt. Your floor, the standards you hold yourself to, need to increase. The people you surround yourself with need to be better people, however you define that. Needs to be people who are operating at that level. So, yeah, that's what I shared with him. And because he was thinking, although he was fairly new to the game, he was thinking very small. And he was thinking that he needed a load of money, where the reality is he didn't need a load of money. He needed to be resourceful. He needed to know where the money was, who he needs to speak to, the type of people he needs to surround himself with. And he wasn't thinking that. He was thinking more of the content rather than the context, which is the big shift. Come on.
Come on then, I'm ready. What are we doing?
So I did a video on the way here about having the mentality of going into every transaction as if you have no capital to work with.
Or because it's other people's capital.
Well, that was the point I made on the video.
Yeah.
Was that it doesn't have to be yours, but like when they're saying on the teach on these courses, none of your own money and all that, I was like, well, yeah.
NMD.
Yeah, no money down and all that shit. It's like, well, I said on the thing, yes, it is no money down, but there's always money involved. It's just not your money,
always out of your arse pocket.
So when a deal crosses your desk, other than getting me to do the work, what's your mentality like when that? What's the first thoughts that come to your head?
I'd be going straight into my phone book, and I'd be going to people that I've worked with previously, and I'd be saying, you know, how we operate. This deal has come across our desk. We're interested. We're looking for X amount over, you know, the desired period.
As debt, so you get someone who'd put it in as
debt, or if you think there's potentially a longer term relationship to be built, maybe you bring them in as an equity partner. You sit down, have that conversation and go, look, this ain't one deal. We want to do 10 of these deals with you over the next couple of years.
Yeah.
And not sell the dream, because it makes it sound, that's got connotations of it not being realistic.
Yeah,
and
being a scam.
And being a scam, but no, that's the first thing that we do, innit?
Yeah.
As first thought. So I won't mention names, but there's probably at least a handful of people that we'd go out to pretty much straight away, isn't there?
Yeah.
That we've already got an existing relationship with, and I think it's just it's actually crossed my mind earlier when we was up the cap. It's a mindset thing, isn't it? So most people look at you and go, fuck me, you're busy, how are you managing to do all this? And then it brings in it brought to me in my head earlier the conversation about debt, good debt, bad debt, and knowing how to utilise it, basically. And if you don't understand the meaning of that and how to use it to your advantage, then a lot of this sort of thing does seem out of reach and impossible. But if you understand the mechanics behind it and how it all can come together, then there's instruments out there for you to use, isn't there?
Yeah.
So you can use investor debt at the same time as using bridging debt as well.
Which is usually investor debt anyway, under the umbrella of a bridging loan.
Yeah. There you go. Like family offices or whatever. But without that knowledge, you might think, fuck me, I need to find now all of this money from one person, or I need to have it myself. That's what some people think, don't they? And they don't go as far as maybe thinking,
exactly,
I need a buy-to-let.
But when you're first starting out,
commercial mortgage, you know.
When you're first starting out, it's always.
Well, we had them deals sent over today, didn't we? You know that. I won't mention the names again because they're very good deals. We had a load of deals come over today from the same people. You know the ones I'm talking about. And how they present those deals is exactly how I've just said, as if you're getting him getting it via a buy-to-let mortgage. That's really quite basic, isn't it? That's a basic way of doing it. If you combine a private investor with a bridging loan, I would argue, depending on how you want to exit, I'd argue that's a better way of doing it.
One of the issues now with getting buy-to-let loans and using investor money is that the buy-to-let lenders don't like you using external funds for down payments.
Yeah, I've seen that, yeah.
Whereas bridgers, they don't care, as long as they've got the security, they'll lend the money.
Yeah.
But then when it comes to refinancing back out, some of them I think are now saying, well, where's the initial capital coming from? And this is why I like working with equity partners, because if they're a member or a shareholder of the company, the ones who put the money in, ticks that box, don't we?
Yeah, it's all talking from one place, they're talking from a business rather than a separate individual.
And in 2 or 3 years, if you've got an agreement with them, if it's in your models and articles of the company, to say, we can buy him out for whatever, it don't matter then. It's all been set up already, up front.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think when you said it's a mindset thing, in my mind, the first point of call always is, discount is 50 grand discount we got on this. What's the quickest way I can get 200 grand, if let's suppose we get it for 200, it's worth 250. What's the quickest way I can get my hands on 200 grand, pull out 35 grand profit out of this? And everything's into it, I've got no money. How can I be resourceful to get that money together? Whether that's through bridging, I can get at least 70% clear, more or less any, if it's discounted more or less all the time.
Depending on the deal. I mean, we've done some deals recently, haven't we? Where they've done market value rather than what we've actually paid for it.
I had one today, though, where they've gone and valued it higher than I thought they was going to value it. And they've now lent us 90% of purchase price, minus your interest, because it's retained. I think we're in at 103. So we only need to find 30 grand instead of
130 grand.
No, we need to find, but if we'd have gone for 75% of...
Oh yeah, we'd have needed a good 60 grand probably.
Exactly, we needed a lot more. We'd probably need about 50, yeah.
Just whilst it's in my head, might be worth mentioning at this point, because this is something else we've been analysing recently with another deal, which could potentially be a massive deal. The sort of mechanics around what loan to value to go for, because it can be quite tempting to just max yourself out as much as possible in it with a bridging loan. But then when it comes to potentially you wanting to keep it when you're refinancing out of that onto a traditional commercial mortgage, say, sometimes if you're too highly leveraged with your bridging loan, it can be difficult to come out the other end, can't it?
Of course.
So when we spoke about that big portfolio last week, Artex stuff.
Yeah.
If we were too highly geared up in the original purchase of those, if we wanted to keep them, we might struggle to get back out of it, and we depending on what the market's doing at that time. So it's worth it. You can be better off, depending on what your exit is, to have a lower loan to value.
Yeah.
That then allows you to get out easier on the back end.
Ideally,
I think that's probably worth speaking
yeah.
about it, because we've got a contact, if we like, or a friend that is in a difficult position with that currently, because he was too highly geared up with the initial purchase. Now he can't get out of it, and he's stuck in it
because rates have gone up.
That worth
exactly
what he's borrowed.
He took out a bridging loan at like 11% per annum, 12% per annum, because rates have gone through the roof now. Commercial loans particularly, you can't get a commercial loan for less than 10 on this asset. So now he's more or less bridging on a term basis rather than short-term funding now. It's killing him. Can't get out of it because the cash flow don't service the debt. Yeah. So in terms of like a normal house, I mean, bridging, they're smart, man, the way they do it. They say 75% loan to value, but by the time you've took everything off, they're down at 60, 63, 64, 65% loan to value generally. So they're safe, man. The market's not going to fall 35%, is it?
Of course not.
So they're not stupid.
Yeah, they know what they're doing.
But even then, let's suppose the person you're talking about can't refinance all of the monies back out. There are creative ways around it where you could borrow, say, 65% on a commercial basis. He's got 35% there that he can't pay off. Can he go out to the private investor market and say, I'll give you 50% of the company? You might have to give away more than you want to give away, but if that gets him out the pickle, he could give away 50% of the company with a view to buying back 15% of the company in 12 months when cash flow's better. So there is always ways around things. Even when the shit hits the fan, the mentality of, it's all gone wrong, you know.
No, that's right.
Just doesn't work, man. You have to have an abundant head where there's always something that can be done. Usually it's just the other parties that are chucking up problems.
Yeah.
Banks in particular, they're a nightmare.
Yeah. No, that's a fair point. And that, again, that is the beauty of dealing with private investors, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you know, bridging firms are usually a lot more approachable as well, aren't they, than
some?
Yeah, but in the main, you would say they are
better
more
than
approachable
banks,
than banks, aren't they?
Yeah.
When you might get into a bit of a sticky situation like you were just describing there.
Yeah. But as well, borrowing money on a loan basis rather than like on a joint venture equity basis. We paid back a loan yesterday that was 18% pro rata over 12 months. Now, most people, if they heard someone say 18%, they'd run a mile.
Yeah.
But the reality is that loan was only held for, well, it should have been 4 months, it took 5. So we only ended up paying 7.5%. No entry fee, no legal fee. So when you look at it, it's probably as good as a normal bridging loan.
It's when you have to factor in like the opportunity costs, isn't it? Yeah. So if you were to, like you say, have that for the full 12 months, yeah, you could argue that's quite expensive money. But it depends what you do with it, innit?
If you're going to make 100% on 18%, why wouldn't you take the 18% if there's no headache?
Exactly, yeah.
You would, wouldn't you?
It's a completely different proposition, ain't it?
Yeah. Like we're trying to raise a credit facility. Can't go into too much detail. But what they asked for today, business plans, CVs. Never done a CV in my life. I mean, you're thinking for what we're after, it's probably worth doing, but
it's
excessive, isn't it?
It's not quite non-standard. It's very non-standard. That product, again, touching back on what I said at the start of this. A lot of what we're talking about here, people don't even know exist. They don't know that these are things that people can get access to. And what you're just now talking about, having a credit line, a facility like that, again, people with similar experience to ourselves probably aren't aware that that's something that you can get access to. So if you've got to dot the I's and cross the T's by doing some of what they've asked for, and it gets you access to 400 grand, you do it, won't you? Yeah. Or we'll get someone from India to do it for us. Yeah, well, I think that's more like AI, yeah.
ChatGPT can set it up.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's like it all just comes back to mindset, innit? And just having the outlook of looking for solutions rather than looking for problems. And if you're coming from that angle all the time, you get used to coming up with creative ways of doing business.
Of course you do. I'm just looking here trying to find the the regulation or whatever bullshit they come out with about being a high net worth individual. And if you're promoting a deal or a joint venture agreement, you're meant to have
FCA type.
I don't know what it is, to be honest, but I think it's 200,000 in it.
I don't actually know. You've mentioned it before, and the busy folk that are on social media, they try and pull you up in it, don't they? If you do go out there and advertise,
it's the advertising of it, which we don't do. I have to make that abundantly clear. We don't advertise to people to bring in equity partners, but if a broker suggests it, that's how that opened the door. Is a broker suggested it to me, and that's how we started it. But I think that's what mezzanine finance is a lot of the time. They take a shareholding, don't they, for the top up a debt. I think.
I don't know too much about that.
Just be careful of that, man. I've got to say it on a social media platform, advertising it equity, for people to come in on your deals as joint venture partners. I think what it is if you advertise it as a profit share, there need to be a high net worth individual.
Right.
But if you borrow money as debt, they don't.
Right.
I'm sure there'll be some people
don't-
to explain why.
We don't really like to get bogged down in any regulation at all, really, do we? Which is a bit frustrating because there's obviously a lot
You got it.
of that in the property industry.
You've got to do it, you
Yeah, you've got to do it, but it don't. What I'm saying, it don't stop us from finding ways to do business. Does it?
100%.
If you put it like that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it scares people, doesn't it? These sorts of things scare people from not doing anything, so they don't take any action at all.
Mm.
But again, if you have a different mindset and you're coming at it from a different angle, you find ways of doing business, don't you?
You always do.
Especially if you're bringing in other equity partners who are business minded, they're open to all of this.
Yeah.
It's a different conversation, isn't it? Like, you think you put something on social media the other day, you can lend 100 grand off one person and they want chapter and verse, they want to know your life story, they want to know your accounts for the last 100 years. And you deal with another guy and he sends it, as long as there's some sort of contract in place, that's about it.
Mm.
And they'll send it you.
Mm.
It's just,
It's a mentality thing
you're dealing
again.
with different people.
Yeah. And what you tend to find as well is that these type of regulations, it's like, well, if you're not wealthy, you can't do good deals. So what you're actually doing there is you're keeping the poorer people in a poor state, in the head and in the world, both. Whereas if you opened all that up to them, if we had someone with 190 grand, but they couldn't put it in because they're below 200 grand,
It's bonkers.
just lunacy, innit?
Yeah.
I think it's 200 grand. I think I could be wrong there. The guys we work with have asset bases of hundreds of thousands, millions, so that's why they can come in on our deals with us. But my first point of call is always borrow money as debt, borrow bridging, then it goes to equity. Because it's more expensive. If you're giving away 50% of the company that's acquiring the asset, then it's more expensive.
Yeah, and it's depending on the deal, it's depending on the person as well, the investor. If the investor was, maybe worth more than what we've dealt with previously, and we've got some deals in the pipeline, you'd look at that maybe with a different angle of building a relationship, and with the intention of sending these other deals in the pipeline their way as well.
Longer term relationships, you give them more to begin with, don't you?
Yeah.
We've done a lot with one guy, put his own properties up and that to leverage against, and he has 50%, don't he, of the deals that we do. He's very hands off, just lets us get on with it, don't he?
Again, it's another beauty of bridging, isn't it? That's something we've touched on before, like the deals in Kidderminster. We've not actually, none of us have put any money into the deal. He's just put some properties up as security and hope of putting the rest, don't they? Again, most people wouldn't think that's doable, if that's possible at all. And when you open your mind to some of these things, you do then realise that you can go out and do more than you think.
Yeah.
It just opens up doors, doesn't it?